Good morning, guys. I want to throw a quick shout out there to our friends around the world. We've got a whole bunch of people from Norway, from the Bible College there, the Bible School in Grimstad. It's been a wonderful association with you. We can't wait for you guys to get here. There's some long-term volunteers coming from Norway to join with us here at Genesis, for those who don't know, and they'll be serving in our community. We love you guys, and we're looking forward to you and your arrival here. But we're doing a bit of a series on what it means to communicate effectively. I don't know if you've noticed, but the incredible practical nature of the book of Proverbs. Who would have thought that in the book of God that there would be such specific instructions for our daily lives? Well, today we're talking about the power of words. We will be for the rest of this week. But there are three categories of words that I would like to speak about. The first one today is I'd like to talk about what Proverbs talks about when it speaks about thoughtful words. In Proverbs 15 verse 28 it says this: "The heart of the righteous weighs its answer, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil." Isn't it unfortunate that there's no delete button on the things that we say? If there were, I've got to tell you, I would be using it every day. Because every day there are words that I say that may not necessarily be evil, or I hope they're not, but they're certainly foolish. And afterwards I think, why did I say that? That was not the cleverest thing to say. I wish there was a delete button. Fortunately, the words that I speak are generally don't go further than the four walls of the building. But we have people like Peter in the Bible, who has all his blupses and his foolish things that he said in writing. Peter spoke once where he said to Jesus, when they were on the Mount of Transfiguration, the glory of Moses and Elijah, and Jesus was there, and Peter didn't know what to say, so he did what he normally does and says something foolish, and he said, "Jesus, this is so cool that here we are, Jesus and Moses and Elijah. Why don't we stay here for a while, and I'll build us each a little booth that we can live in." And Jesus looks at Peter and says, "Peter, that's not what this is about. Just be quiet and listen." There are some times when silence is far better than words. That was one of them. In Mark 14, we have Peter's almost braggingly saying, "Jesus, I will die for you. I will not fall away from you. I will be with you." But it's not long before Peter is denying Jesus, and his verbal blunders are all over the place. Now, we talk about these verbal blunders and we say, well, why do they happen? Some of them happens because we're just too impulsive, but some happens because we're too impatient. I think of teachers and I think of parents who sadly say things to children that children remember forever. I have spoken to people in their 40s and 50s who are still scarred by the foolish things that people said to them when they were children. "Johnny, you're never going to amount to anything. You can't do the maths." And that kid, he will take that on, and he will forever be label himself as useless as maths. I've heard parents say to their children, "I wish I'd never had you." And I'm thinking, wow, 40 years down the road, that kid is still going to be thinking that same thing. The parent didn't really mean it, but in their impatience and sometimes even their anger, we say some of the stupidest things. As I say, they're not necessarily evil. They're not planned for bad. They're just, according to Proverbs, foolish words. Proverbs advocates thoughtful words. In Joshua chapter 8, we have Joshua acting very impulsively, and there was a group of people that Joshua had to chase out of the land or wipe them out, and they got clever and they came on hands and knees to Joshua saying, "We've come from a distant land and we're looking for your help. We need your support, and we promise we're no threat to you." And Joshua, in an impulsive moment, you can't challenge his motive, but man, he said something foolish. He said, "Okay guys, we'll look after you. We won't fight with you. We won't kill you." And these men went back over the hill and they smiled because they were the next ones on the hit list. And Joshua said a foolish thing. Be very careful, folks, in the areas of vows, promises, and covenants, what we say to one another, and also what we say to God. because we sometimes, in a fit of emotion, in a church service where we sense the presence of God, we say things to God, we make promises to God that by the time we've got in the car park, we have forgotten them. God has not forgotten those promises, and He may well hold you accountable for them. I think sometimes too, we speak too glibly about the will of God. When somebody comes and says, I'd like to do something, and we'll say, well, why? He says, because I believe it is the will of God. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to argue with God. And when you play the God card in conversations like that, you win. God trumps everything. And I've seen so many people, and I'm sure you have too, who've come with great intention but have used very poor terminology by sometimes playing the God card, and I say that with respect, and it's not necessarily the will of God. But if you tell me it is, I'm not going to argue with you, because I don't want to argue with God. In the Old Testament, the prophets were very careful about what they said, because if their prophecy did not come true, then you know what happened to them. They were stoned. And so the prophet was very careful about talking about thus saith the Lord, or this is the will of God. And I think maybe we should learn a little bit about that as well. There's a beautiful thought in thoughtful words, where we can actually sometimes show a sign of good character by going through with the things that we have promised, even though we make a mistake in speaking them poorly. That's what Joshua did. And the blessing of God was so strongly upon him when he tried to redeem his stupid promises. He went out there to the Gibeonites when they had a problem with a whole bunch of kings and they were under threat. And he took his whole army and he protected the people, even though his army was saying, Joshua, these people have conned you. Joshua, these people are not worthy of our protection. But God smiled at Joshua when he redeemed his promise, even though he had said it thoughtlessly. I think sometimes, even in our marriage, in our business relationships, when we redeem thoughtless promises, God smiles and says, you are now a man or a woman of your word. And that impresses God. It impressed God so much with Joshua that he gave him the greatest victory. Hailstones out of the sky came down and wiped out the enemy. It was just the most amazing time, and God extended the length of the day so that Joshua could redeem a silly promise that he had made. Let's today review some of the promises maybe that we've made. Maybe we need to redeem a couple of those people. But certainly, let's get God excited when we start thinking seriously about the things we say and be a lot more thoughtful in the words that we use. So have a great day. I hope this will encourage you.